Hello and welcome to another episode of our JavaScript series. In the previous episode, I showed you how you can create variables and what you can do with them. What we did not discuss is how important it is to ensure that you name your variables in a way that adheres to best practices, which is what we will be focusing on in this episode. First, it is important that you give your variables meaningful names. JavaScript is not going to give you errors if you use gobbledygook to name your variables. So, for example, you can just use gobbledygook like so and say variable name is whatever, and then include the equal sign and then the value, and then let's say name, and close this off with a semicolon. You'll see that when we run this line of code, we do not get errors, and this is because it is a valid name, although it is gobbledygook. But we are encouraged to use meaningful names, like say, let's say let me just put in my name like so you will be able, even someone else reading this will be able to see that, okay, this is a person's name, so it is a meaningful name, and that is what we are encouraged to do when we name our variables. Secondly, do not use any of the JavaScript reserved keywords as variable names. For example, you cannot use var as your variable name, so you cannot, for example, say var and use it right here. You'll see that when I run this code, we get an error. Okay, we get an error because we've used this reserved keyword. So it is fine if you use this keyword and it is preceded by another word. For example, if I say my var, everything now is fine. As you can see, the color of this name changes to blue, and when I run this code, we don't get an error. And this is because although we have used a JavaScript keyword, it is preceded by a word, so this will be fine. So make sure that you do not use this keyword alone, because you will get errors. Thirdly, a variable name cannot begin with a number. For example, we cannot say let me just delete here. We cannot have a variable name that is, for example, 1 2 3 4, like so. You'll see that when I run this code, we get an error. This is because this is not a valid name. So a name can begin with a word or an underscore. So a variable can contain a word or an underscore. Let me just do this. For example, I'm just going to add an underscore here, like so. You'll see that when I run this code, we don't get an error anymore. This is because we've added an underscore at the beginning here. So, and once again, let me just remove this underscore and replace this with a word, my. Once again, everything is fine. I can run this code and we are not getting an error right here. So what this tells us is that a variable name can contain a number, it just can't begin with it. Fourthly, variable names can't contain spaces. We cannot have a variable name that has a space, like so. Let's say a variable name that is my space name, like so. You'll see that when I run this code, we get this error, and this zigzag line starts here. It does not include this my word, because this is treated as a valid name. So the first word that comes after the var keyword will be treated as the valid name. So everything after that, as you can see, we get this line starting here. This is because the system doesn't know how to interpret this. It doesn't know what this is. So make sure that when you name your variables, you do not include these spaces. Finally, JavaScript allows us to use lowercase and uppercase. For example, I can come here and use capital letters like name, like so, and then you'll see that when I run this code, then nothing happens. This is because this is treated as a valid name, although the name is in uppercase. But while that is the case, it is recommended that we use the camel casing convention to name variables. Now, what is camel case? It is a practice of writing phrases without spaces. So the very first letter is in lowercase, like so. So the very first letter will be in lowercase. Say my, and then each word after that will begin with an uppercase letter, like so. So this is what is referred to as a camel casing naming convention. So this naming convention got its name from its resemblance to the camel hump. And that brings us to the end of our discussion of naming conventions of JavaScript variables. Thanks for watching and bye for now.